Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sabeen. I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Laura, and then we're going to start the presentation.
Hi, everyone. We're going to use these microphones because we're also trying to record the session for some folks that can't be here. So hopefully you don't mind. But I'm Laura. Sabeen and I will introduce ourselves a little bit more in just a second, but we are here to tell you a little bit about the TC NEXUS, which is a program our office developed, and how we connect career development curriculum to coaching, programming, and employment partnerships. So our goals and learning outcomes for today are so that folks in this presentation can understand the creation of career development curriculum based on a pathways model and also incorporating wellness, and also how you can connect bespoke career development practices with student coaching, workshop programming, employer engagement strategies to support students' professional development. But I think beyond that, right, even if you're not a career services professional, there's a lot about what we're talking about today, how we created a model for our office, how we looked at theory that supported the work our office is doing, and how we put it into practice that can be beneficial for your role in a variety of student-facing offices. And before we start, we have to give a big thank you here to members of our team. This is our colleagues at TC Next. So a big thanks to them because the development of the NEXUS and of course the daily implementation of it falls on all of us. So we have to give a shout out to our colleagues as well.
Okay, so my name is Sabeen. I'm the director of TC Next. So I have an EDD in educational policy and leadership and a master's in mental health counseling. And I always tell folks that's really important because my mental health counseling background comes in really handy when we think about a curriculum in our office. I worked maybe over 10 years in higher education, as well as the mental health and nonprofit sector. My research is primarily focused on reporting behaviors, campus policies, and experiences of Muslim college students. And I do serve on the founding board of a grassroots nonprofit, and I am a mental health first aid instructor. Dr. Laura.
All right, and I'm Laura Coleman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the senior associate director at TC Next. I've been at TC for about 3.5 years at this point. Shockingly, that makes me the person in our office who has been at TC the longest. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that too. My background has been actually across the field of higher education. So I worked in admissions, I worked with international students, I worked in alumni relations, and now working in career development. I'm also a student at TC, so I am nearing completion on my master's degree in anthropology and education. And you can see in my free time, like doing a bunch of fun stuff around the city as well. So that's who we are. I know we have a small group today, so I think we'll have some time at the end to chat as well. So we're excited to get to know who you all are as well. So just to give you a little bit of context, if you're not as familiar with TC, if you haven't been across the street and seen us before, TC is the Graduate School of Education, Health, and Psychology here at Columbia. We have 10 academic departments at TC, and within those, we have over 100 distinct programs. We have over 5,000 students, so about 4,000 of those are master's degree students, and a little over 1,000 of those students are here doing doctoral programs with us. We also have a great population of international students, which, like probably most of your schools, continues to grow. Right now, we're at about 23% of our student body is international students, but given what we've seen in last year's incoming class and what we expect to continue, we think that will even get bigger and bigger. So that's just a little bit about what we're working with at TC. But our office is situated within the Department of Student Affairs. There are 3 offices within that department. So us, TC Next, the Career Development Office. We also have a Graduate Student Life and Development Office, as well as a Student Support and Advocacy Office. We all then sit under the broader Division of Enrollment and Student Success. So that's with our friends in admissions, registrar, financial aid, all come together there as well. But the interesting thing, and what I alluded to earlier, is that all of the offices within the Department of Student Affairs have either been newly created or newly reimagined over the past 3 years. Really, since we went remote in 2020, we've had a lot of change. Most of us are newly hired. And so you'll see with some of the things we go on to talk about that change and that newness has really inspired us to break outside the box, to try new things, and to really have to grow and develop what our office does, because we're building it from scratch. So we're 3 years old. We're, in our toddler phase, as Sabeen says. So we've learned a lot of things, but we still have a lot more to learn. And so we're excited to share with you, and excited to hear more from you all as well.
Awesome. So I want to go into what the Nexus is, why we created it in some context, and to give you all that context, I feel like I have to go back 3 years ago. Laura mentioned she was the first full-time staff member hired for TC Next. So when our president, we're going to talk about his research in the next slide, came on board, he really looked and analyzed a lot of the things that were happening on campus. And his framework is in guided pathways. He did a lot of work with the Community College Research Center at Teachers College. And so he really thought about how do we create a career office that is new and innovative when we think about career development of our students at Teachers College. So when I came on board about a little over 2 years ago, we had a lot of folks on the coaching team. So our office is kind of housed within, I call them two sides of one house, right? Laura oversees our student employment side that she just took over the past year and a half, as well as our employment partnerships team. Then we have a coaching and programming team. On our coaching and programming team, we had a lot of consultants and career coaches that were not full-time. So when I came on board, there was a lot of conversation about what do we really do? And so I'm the research nerd. I came in and as a staff, we started talking about what is the goal and purpose of our office, right? And that's really important as you all think about like your offices, kind of where you're taking next steps in your career is what is the purpose of what we're doing and how do we fit in the overall structure of a college or university or institution that you are in. So for us, it was really important for us to think about the guided pathways that President Bailey had been really thinking about restructuring TCRM, and Laura's going to go into that in depth. And then we thought about, well, our students at TC are 23% international. Majority of them are returning students that are not typical, I hate the word typical, normal, straight out of undergrad, now doing a graduate degree, right? We have student parents. We have folks that are working full-time that are doing this degree to kind of move up in their career paths. We have folks that are doing doctoral programs that are also doing research, that are teaching assistants, that are doing a lot of things. So our curriculum and the way we saw our office could not be like a quote unquote typical career center that we see in an undergraduate institution. We had to think about a model that was non-linear. Our folks come from all different backgrounds, all different experiences. We meet with alumni that are retired, right? That have been in the field and have so much more experience than we do. So it was really important for us to think about some of the theories that kind of went into building what we call our curriculum as a nexus. And so we have the guided pathways, we use the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is why I mentioned that my background as a mental health counselor is really important because we have to think about student wellness when we think about career paths. And we really focused on what is TC known for. So TC is the oldest school of education and the #1 school of education as of last year, according to the US News World Report. And we are really centered around promoting equity and excellence and overcoming the gap in education access, right? And that is our historical mission and values that we really center around. And so we wanted to make sure that when we think about our curriculum, it was based around that as well. So our entire curriculum is up here, and as you're noticing, there is none of these hexagons or shapes are really around social justice, because our philosophy is that everything we do needs to have a social justice and equity lens. I don't believe in, well, this person's main role is to do EDI work, because then everyone else thinks it's not their jobs to do it, right? Well, I don't have to do it because so-and-so is the EDI person. It should be a part of everything that we do and the backbone of every decision that you make in your professional careers for the equity and access of your students. So a lot of folks ask me, how come it's not there? So that's a huge part of their background. It's because it needs to be part of everything that we do in our office. So I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna go to the next slide. So when we think about 8 dimensions of wellness, a lot of folks scratch their heads and like, Sabeen, why do you guys talk about 8 dimensions of wellness in your office? You're a career development office. I always ask folks, if a student does not have food, does not have shelter, does not have their basic needs met, can we really talk to them about their careers? Can we really sit down with them and do a coaching session on their resumes? No, right? So when we think about wellness, even for ourselves as professionals, right? When we're not doing well emotionally, socially, spiritually, we are not focused in work. So we really have to think about being professionals and coaches that really think about our students in a holistic manner, right? Career and occupation is one part of the 8 dimensions of wellness for students. So we have to make sure that we have resources and referrals for them, and we help them think about how does your occupation and your work wellness fit into the larger scheme of your work, right? And how is that really important for you? And where does financial wellness fit into your lives? Some folks are like, I have a job and I only need this job to make money to survive. That is not my passion. That is okay, right? A lot of folks feel, especially at PC, because we are such a social justice oriented school, they're like, well, I should want to make a huge impact in the world. Yes, but you can also do that through your personal life. And so we really want to think about what are some value systems of our students. So now I'm going to pass on to Laura to talk about student pathways.
Sure. So like Sabeen mentioned, Dr. Tom Bailey is the president of Teachers College. And he has spent a huge part of his career doing work with the Community College Research Center at TC. And when he became the president and he gave some of his first speeches, he talked a lot about the similarities between community college students and graduate students. And I think some people first heard that and were like, wait, that's like 2 different sides of the spectrum. How does that connect? But when you really think about it, there are so many similarities, right? Both of these students have maybe a high likelihood of being part-time students. A lot of them might be parents. They might be doing the program over, a shorter period of time. It's a 2-year program. They have a lot of different goals or needs. And so it actually was very relevant to take President Bailey's research on community college students and try to apply that to what we're doing with master's students at Teachers College. So if you're not familiar with his student pathways work, he's written a whole book. He's done a lot of interesting podcasts. I highly recommend them. But for today, I'll try to distill it down into a short little analogy for you, which I haven't told this to President Bailey before, so I don't know if he signed off on it, but I'm just going to go with it. So I'm a huge Trader Joe's fan. Anyone else a Trader Joe's? Yes, exactly. So I like to think of student pathways kind of like Trader Joe's that, after today, it's been a long day, it's Friday. I go into my Trader Joe's, I've got no list, I've got no plan. I'm just wandering and Trader Joe's is speaking to my heart about what I'm gonna bring home tonight. And what is gonna end up in my bag? Maybe like some cookies, maybe like some cheese, but not really a good variety of things I need to cook my meals for the next week. I'm just going crazy, I'm just following my heart, But if I go into Trader Joe's with a list that I've spent some time thinking about, that I've maybe looked at a recipe for, that's my pathway. That's going to guide me through Trader Joe's so that, I still get the cookies, I still get the fancy new cheese, but I also get the quinoa and the broccoli and the other stuff that I got to get so that I can actually make a real dinner tonight. And so that's a little bit like what guided pathways is like. It's saying that there's a lot of opportunities for our students, and especially graduate students or community college students that don't have an exact point A to point B, that we need to give them checkpoints along the way to help them successfully navigate that path. And so that's informed a lot of the work that President Bailey has done at Teachers College, and it's really informed a lot of the work that we do at TC Next in trying to envision how we can help our students get from point A to point B, even though what point B is really different for all of our students, and how we can give them those checkpoints along the way. And the NEXUS has been a really helpful tool in that.
Laura does such an incredible job explaining that I do not even try to attempt to do that. I'm also a huge Trader Joe's fan. And so when we think about, okay, so what else did you all do, right? So career theories and research has been a huge part of what I've really looked into and what I've really encouraged my staff to read. Everybody in the office knows once you join our staff, Sabeen's gonna send you a Google Drive with theories and Sabeen's gonna expect you to read. And the reason for that is, and I tell my staff this all the time, and they're probably really sick and tired of hearing it, but you don't want to be in the office that throws a wet paper towel against the wall and see what sticks. Everything that we do has to be data and research oriented. If you had asked undergrad Sabeen that, she would have laughed, but she did research it now. This is what I have transformed into. But it's really important for us to think about it, right? If we want higher ups and leaders to really be on board with what we're doing, what's the first thing they ask? Where's the data? Where's the research? Where is your mapping, right? And this is why it's really important. One of the really great things that Laura and I have implemented in our office, and I'll talk about it, is every time the staff has a new idea, we are all for it. We want them to give us a proposal because it puts them in the mindset of thinking really strategically of how they're doing things. So when it comes down to theories, right, this is not all encompassing. If somebody want to do casual light reading, let me know. I have a Google Drive. But the 6 I want to talk about today, is, yep, there's a QR code right there. One is a couple of ones I want to mention is the one I was mentioning before, Brown's value-based theory. It's really important for us to help students think about what are your values when it comes down to your occupation, right? And it's also really important for our students that are from different walks of life that have different responsibilities and challenges in their lives, right? When I used to work for an undergraduate institution, a lot of my finance students were like, I'm scared to tell people in the business school that I don't want to work for like the top 4 financial firms. That's okay, right? But that's a value system of theirs. What are their top values, right? Brene Brown has a really good value systems chart. So that helps students think about what are my value systems and also helping them know that those change over time. My values when I was in my 20s is very different than my values now. Yes, I love it. The other one is happenstance theory, right? For those of you that don't know Crumbolts is one of my favorite researchers, right? He talks about having a plan for yourself in your career, but also taking opportunities to seize things that come to you, right? I would not be in career services if I didn't randomly get a federal work study job as an undergrad in the career office. As a first generation student, brown child of like immigrant parents who are like, be a medical doctor, would I have known if career services was a thing? No, right? My parents still don't know what I do. Like, you're not financial aid, you're not a professor. I don't know what you do. And I'm like, I'm the resume people, Dad, right? But when we think about that, we think about happenstance, right? The other one is brain-based career development theory that is in the middle right there. That talks about not overwhelming students with a lot of information. The student comes to our office and they're like, I have a laundry list of things. How are we doing with my resume, with my cover letter, and networking? Their brain cannot handle all these things, right? So we want to help them prioritize what is the most important thing that we can break down for you, and it's backed by research, and help them understand what are your action steps, right? And in our office, we always tell students, here are your action steps for when you come back to CS. Then we have adults in transition theory, right? Adults in transition go through a lot, right? And so as we think about the population at TC, how are we supporting them in this transition? A lot of them come from very different sectors that are trying to change, right? We have students that were in the finance industry and now want to go into education or mental health counseling, right? How are we supporting them and looking at and thinking about transferable skills, right? It's not that because you're transitioning careers, you throw that other career into the garbage. How do we use it? How do we use core competencies to help you translate that? Then we have appreciative inquiry, really helping students think about why they're doing things. What are your next steps? How is that going to make you successful? And where is that flexibility and adaptability when the world changes? Right? We saw that in COVID. We still continue to see, right? Hopefully we're not going down a recession, but I think we are, right? How are our students really responsible and really looking at the needs of our economy and changing with that? And then of course, multicultural career theory, right? The way we approach one student is not going to be the same in a coaching session of how we approach every student. Every student from a different background has different needs. Even students that might look similar to you have different needs. How are we walking into a coaching session? How are we introducing employers? And Laura's gonna talk a lot about how her perspective on employer partnerships looks like and how it's different. But how are we really treating students as individuals? And that's why we use a coaching. And so again, that link right there talks a lot about some of those theories. And then of course we use the NACE career competencies, right? Those 8 that are all over that change every couple of years depending on where we're going in the fields. So when it comes down to implementation, as you see, our NEXUS is not strict. Students can join us and really think about resources and ways to engage from different aspects of the NEXUS. Some of our students already have their purpose, but they're looking for ways to build community, right? And we don't have the word networking here on purpose, right? Because sometimes it's not just about networking, but it's building your career community. Who are those people around you that will support you? Also, what I noticed is this generation, the word networking scares them. So we're going to go with community and connection, right? Some folks are like, I already have a career community. I need a strategy, right? So we always make sure that every single thing in our office is based upon the NEXUS, right? What point and what are we teaching our students every single time we do an event, we do an initiative, even our employer panel that Laura will talk about are based upon the NEXUS. So we follow a coaching model, not an advisement, not a counseling model, right? Coaching is created by counselors, like folks tell me that, well, you're a counselor, but not everybody is a trained counselor, right? Coaching is a facilitation model. We facilitate a process for a student, right? We are not in the driving seat, we are in the passenger seat, right? And we're supporting somebody and we're cheerleading them on. We meet students where they are. Some of them come up and they have amazing resumes, CVs that look better than any of ours. That's amazing, right? How do we support you? And then we want to make sure we tailor sessions to fit the needs of all of our students. Then not everything is a one size fits all, and we need to be, as coaches, as career services professionals, adaptable and flexible to the person in front of us. Pass it to Laura, talk about employer engagement.
Sure. So these are just a few examples, and like Sabeen had mentioned in coaching, right? So we have this beautiful model of the NEXUS, but what does that mean, right? What do we do every day with it? So we have a great series that we've started on our campus called Learn and Connect. And it came from a need that I saw where we had a lot of companies coming to us saying, we're so excited to meet your students. Can we come to our campus? We bring them here and they would talk for 45 minutes straight without stopping about the history of their company and the, how much money they made and all these great things. And that was lovely, but the students weren't really that interested in it. And so we were like, okay, what is something that's really going to capture the attention of our students and give them the information that they need? Because honestly, all those things that the companies were saying in the info sessions, we wanted students to read that on their website before they even got there. So it wasn't a good use of everyone's time. So we've created a Learn and Connect series, which involves a panel of employers from a variety of different industries. And the questions on the panel are focused on one of the elements of the NEXUS. So the employers have the opportunity to tell us a little bit about their company, to tell us about open roles they have, or about their internship program, of course. But then we go into one of the elements of the NEXUS. So we might talk about professional community, and we might ask them how they've grown their professional community throughout their career, or what opportunities there are to cultivate professional community within the organization that they work at. And so it really allows students to connect the dots and to maybe get a clearer picture of what it could be like to work at that organization beyond just some of the basic facts that you might find on the About page on our website. After we do the panel, we move into a networking reception where students then, we've seen they feel so much more comfortable going up to these companies and speaking with them. They've heard these folks share candid advice for the past 45 minutes on a panel. And so it's a lot more comfortable to then walk up to those employers and connect with them on something that they've said, as well as connect with their fellow students and alumni who have come to the event. So that Learn and Connect series has been very successful for us. And I think a core component of that has been because we framed it around elements of the NEXUS rather than just general information about a company. Getting down to a bit more of a granular level, in my role, I'm meeting with employers very frequently to talk to them about our students, to tell them how great our students are, why they should hire them, all that good stuff. But what I also want to do in those conversations is really hold our employers accountable for what kind of an environment they will be for our students to go and continue their professional journey. And so I think especially about the NEXUS elements of identity and growth and how they can support that. Something that I think is becoming more and more frequent, and I don't know if any of you have similar conversations, but employers will come and they'll say, I want you to introduce me to all your diverse students. And I'll say, okay, what does that mean to you? And if that's the angle you're going towards, right, I understand that organizations want to increase the diversity of their talent pool. But then I want to ask them back, what are you doing for your diverse candidates when they join your organization? What sort of employee research groups do you offer? What sort of management leadership development programs do you offer, particularly for some of those different identities that folks hold, right? That this is not just a matter of, here, let me introduce you to my students. You've got to back it up with then what you're going to be able to offer them at your organization. And so I think having those really thoughtful conversations has also been helpful for us in employers understanding what we're all about, what our students are all about when we're having those talks. And then finally, we do an employer newsletter that we send out to all of our contacts quarterly. And in that newsletter, we are really trying to be the thought leaders for some of these organizations in professional development insights, in employment trends, so that we can speak to what we're seeing every day amongst 5,000 students, amongst 90,000 alumni, what they need, what they want, and share that insight with our employers that we work with. And that really kind of involves a lot of elements of the Nexus, but has been another fantastic way for us to really tap into that as we're communicating with our employer partners. So Sabeen and I, like we said, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we don't want to throw wet paper towels at the wall. So we're trying to think of, okay, how do we know it worked? Is it working? And so these are some of the things that we're continually thinking about and assessing. And one of the things that we've really seen come out of us all following the Nexus model, and everyone in our office, regardless of their job, saying, what element of the Nexus am I supporting when I do this work? We found that our workshops and employer events really do a better job of complementing one another. We can take content from a workshop to prepare our students and then mirror that in an employer event where they get to put that content into practice. We're reinforcing main ideas, we're speaking the same language. There's really no divide between folks that do primarily coaching and folks that primarily do employer engagement. We also have found that being on the same page in this way allows our members of both teams to really support any type of event. So we do a really fun event called Mocktails and Mock Interviews, where we have non-alcoholic cocktails and we help our students practice their interview skills. Every person from our office, from people who do coaching to people who do on-campus student employment to people who do our newsletter and social media, can all support in that event giving mock interviews to students, because they all understand this very holistic approach to how we're trying to support them. It also really helps us in cross-sharing information amongst key stakeholders and really empowering cross-functional collaboration, right? So getting back to this idea that we do not operate in these silos, that we're all working towards a shared mission. And with that, it means that the Nexus is really our North Star when clarity is needed. And that's one that's really important to me. And what I mean by the Nexus being a North Star is really that, you know, our office is new, we're young, we're fresh, we're excited. And folks started coming to us saying, we want to work with you, we want to collaborate, which was awesome. That also made us feel like it was really working. But there were some times where folks would come to us with a collaboration idea and we would think, this has nothing to do with career development. Like, that's awesome that they want to work with us, but is this really the right thing for us to partner with them on? And it's very easy for us to look at the project, to look at the Nexus and say, does this support one of the areas of the Nexus? And if it doesn't, then it's really straightforward for us to say, we love the work you're doing, but this maybe doesn't fit into the work we're doing. And so I think it's great when you're in a space where there's a lot of opportunities being thrown at you to have this very strong clarity of what your office's mission and goals are.
Amazing. So what are some recommendations for you all if you want to think about a curriculum, right? So when Laura and I think about annual goals for our office, we really sit down and we think about what is our college's goals. Underneath that, what are our department's goals, and how do we fit our office and our individual team goals into that, right? Because we have to fit into what the college is doing, right? How do we kind of move the college forward? So I recommend you all think about on your campuses, right, in your offices, what are you following, right? Who are the folks that are asking you for data? What is kind of the results that they're looking for? And to think about who are your students, right? The School of Social Work, Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, your student populations are going to be different. What are they looking for? What do they look like, right? And how does your curriculum really speak to who they are, right? Our curriculum is maybe not going to work at an undergraduate liberal arts university, right? But it works for us as an educational, psychological, and health institution, right? Like, it works for us, it works for our students, right? So you can't take something and say, yes, we're going to implement this now on my campus word for word. You have to really think about who are your students, what are your key stakeholders, what are the mission, and what are some indicators of success that your leaders are looking for, right? So some of the things that we have put inside of our annual report for data is going to be different than everybody else's. So I recommend folks thinking about, when we do events, when we do initiatives, what is the rationale behind it? Why is this really going to benefit your students, and how is this going to help them with their professional development? And that's really important for us to think about, right? I've been at institutions where folks are like, we're going to do this one event. Amazing. How does that now help students' professional and career development, right? We have to keep thinking about that. And this is why when Laura said it goes back to the NEXUS being our North Star, right? And it's amazing that people want to collaborate with us because we always think about it from a perspective of if we do an event in a silo, are students really going to seek out and come to a TC Next event? Versus if we partner with 2 or 3 other offices and we all have like a collective pull in helping our students, right? So I was just talking to somebody from our HR office that wants to support some of our workshops. That's amazing. We've heard of HR working with career development. That's an incredible collaboration. That makes sense, right? But if someone wants to do an event on something that's not related, right? We have to make sure is what we're doing related to the NEXUS, is that related to career development of our students? So that's a really good place for you all to start. Kind of think about why are you doing things that you're doing? Does that make sense? Is it backed by research? Is it backed by theory? And does it make sense for your student population? Want to add anything else, Laura?
No, I think that's great.
Awesome. All right, now we're going to open up if anybody has any questions.
While we're there, we can maybe just end up on this slide, which just gives you the QR code again, if you're interested in all of those theories Sabeen talked about, as well as a copy of this deck is there as well. And then you'll see mine and Sabeen's email addresses, QR codes for LinkedIn. We would love to stay in touch. I feel like, I don't know about you, but when I started working at TC and people were like, you're not gonna meet people around Columbia, like this doesn't happen. You know, and I have really not found that to be the case. I've made so many great connections with folks, so excited to keep that going today. So yeah, since we're a small group, I'm curious if folks have questions, if folks have initial impressions, if there are similar things that you've been trying in your office, we'd love to hear any of it.
I mean, no pressure. Yeah.